Hello again and welcome back. My name is Tom Nelson, and this is a continuation of the Diabetes Control 6 Steps to Gaining Complete Control Over Diabetes course. This is a huge course. This is video lesson number 8, part number 2. We're going to be talking about lectins. Besides the antigens plants all have, another player called lectins is at play as well. They are nature's defense system for plants. Let's stop for a moment and talk about that. Lectins protect the plants. If you think about it, plants can't just get up and run if something starts to eat it. So it has to have a natural means by which to discourage other animals, insects, or whatever from eating them. And so that is where lectins come in. Lectins make it uncomfortable or even make some of them sick. So they'll stop eating it and thus the plant will be spared. So when the lectins are abundant, as they are in some class, for example, wheat and legumes have very abundant and very aggressive forms of lectins. And when they are abundant, they begin to agglutinate, which means they glue together. Peanuts are also one that have very aggressive lectins. So this agglutination has a dramatic effect on your blood. Lectins are proteins, usually in small amounts, which means for most plants, they're not going to bother you much, if at all. But when they're incompatible, protein lectins are present. They attach to an organ or some system in your body, like your kidneys, your liver, your stomach, your brain, and others, and they begin to agglutinate blood cells in that area, which can be problematic. So the damage that they cause can destroy cells, and it can cause massive amounts of inflammation. Digestion will not affect the lectins. They will cause severe inflammation inside the intestines as well as the rest of the body if they get beyond the intestines. And that can prevent even food from being digested or the nutrients being absorbed. So the lectins may attach, again, agglutinate, to the lining of your intestines or your stomach, or they may be absorbed along with the other nutrients of the foods that are being digested and then moved into your bloodstream. So different lectins attack different organs. The lectins form clumps of cells in the targeted area. So your antigens will begin to generate antibodies along with the immune system. It's actually the immune system that produces them. They will generate those antibodies together for the lectins just as it would for a virus or any other intruder. So these clumps can cause very serious health issues, including kidney or liver damage. It can contribute significantly towards kidney or liver failure. In general, lectins are capable of causing inflammation to occur at a cellular level that can kill or damage the cells. So approximately 5% of the lectins that are absorbed and inserted into the bloodstream can be and is problematic, especially if they are specific to a particular blood type. So these lectins destroy red and white cells. Lectins in the intestinal tract can cause violent inflammation of the sensitive mucus of the intestines. You recall we talked about that mucus layer in previous videos. Your cells, your epithelial cells, the cells that make up the lining of the intestines, are also home to a goblet cell that produces a mucus. And that mucus will coat very lightly the entire inside of the intestines. It acts as a protective mechanism for that very delicate lining of the intestines. But it also provides a home, a place for the beneficial bacteria that partner with those epithelial cells. It gives a home, a place for the white cells to gather and to protect, and it also gives a home for the beneficial viruses called phages, as we've discussed in other videos. So very small amounts of lectins can clump a huge number of blood cells in a body that has a conflicting blood type. So insulin resistance is triggered by an overconsumption of lectins, rich foods that react with a specific blood type. Lectins in food will react with blood type antigens, and they will pass through the gut wall, just like it would if it were leaky gut, and they will enter the bloodstream. So they can target a specific organ or an organ system, again, like the kidneys, the liver, the thyroid, and others, and they begin to agglutinate blood cells in that organ, which causes damage. Some lectins, especially those of grains, cause extensive chaos in the body's fat cells. They bind to the insulin receptors of the fat cells, which, you remember, the insulin receptor is on the membrane of each and every one of the cells. And it's the insulin receptor that controls how much glucose can enter the cell. It captures and it passes through one molecule of insulin, which triggers a gate that allows the one molecule of glucose to enter to the inside of the cell. So this is one of the areas that are greatly affected. Those lectins will bind to those insulin receptors, which means that they will no longer be able to capture and utilize the insulin that your body produces. So it's a form of insulin resistance, and it will stay that way for the life of that cell, which can be up to a couple days. So they bind to their insulin receptors, they cause insulin resistance, and that signals the fat cell to stop burning fat and to store more fat. Lectins, while found in nearly every food, are not well understood. So our scientific world is still trying to catch up and to really fully understand them. So studies have proven that lectins are at least mildly detrimental to everybody, and clearly destructive for those that are more sensitive to them. And your blood type can play a major factor in that. So lectins are common natural agents that are described by some experts as thugs of the anti-nutrient world. So lectins and the risk they impose are rarely mentioned in any of the popular health publications. They just exist without any attention whatsoever. So they're basically unfettered. So your insulin resistance is increased by eating insulin-mimicking lectins that are incompatible with your blood type or your rheology. Rheology is the plus or minus after your blood type. So they are found on the surfaces of cells that line your gastrointestinal tract. Those are your epithelial cells. Obviously, the best way to prevent toxic lectin damage is to not eat the food that contains them. Wheat and soy are the worst of all of them, and so are their oils. So both of those contain very toxic lectins. So it's very simple. Don't eat them. Don't eat anything that is made from soy or wheat or their oils. Toxic lectins contribute to, or they cause, a large number of conditions, which includes, and I'm not going to read all of these to you, but you can stop the video if you need to go through it. But arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, allergies, asthma, high cholesterol, arterial sclerosis, which is artery buildup of plaque, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and so on through this very long list. Some people's bodies have the capacity to repair enough of the damage that's caused by lectins to prevent the more severe consequences that lectins would otherwise cause. However, their body is in constant state of war when that food item is consumed. It's chronic inflammation that occurs. Others are going to develop severe allergies because of the massive amounts of antibodies that are produced for trying to treat those lectins. So sufferers of chronic autoimmune diseases, like diabetes, should eliminate all the foods that contain toxic lectins and gluten for the rest of your life. And this is particularly true of genetically engineered foods, the GMOs. So the intolerance will never go away. Part 3 of this lesson, the next lesson, it was going to explain that process in greater detail. And then continuing, the lesson will focus on what you should and should not eat based on your blood type. So lectins are a menace, and they need to be reckoned with. So now proceed to lesson number 8, Diabetes and Blood Type, Part 3, How Lectins Work. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and please pay it forward. Thank you.